let's click this on and tune in. Live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development bi-weekly call. We are all tuned in today. Today is March 2nd, our first call of March. How exciting is that? Spring has sprung for many of us, and we are excited in what the community has to offer. So let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today. We got the latest updates on the community. We've got PnP .NET libraries, PowerShell, Teams, Microsoft Teams Toolkit, Microsoft Graph Toolkit, Independent Publisher Connector, so many amazing areas of contributions, and script samples, team samples, Power Platform samples. We've got all the samples. And then, of course, everyone's favorite time, picture time, where we'll get to show our fantastic faces to the community. Then we're going to get to our two all-stars of the day. Anoop is going to cover using app-only model with Microsoft Graph APIs for Planner. And then Adam is going to get into improving your test strategy with Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. So two very exciting demos for us to talk about today. Now, let's take an overview look at what resources are available to you. We've got Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community videos rolled up all into one that you can subscribe to today to continue to be up to date with all the cool things that are happening if you like those picture movie things. And then we've got a LinkedIn group for discussions, and you can be part of this. So definitely go check that out and join today. A number of open source resources, and of course those sample galleries. Community samples will take you to all the roll up of them, where you're going to be able to see some very cool profiles of the actual contributors, and we'll see more of that in upcoming calls. And then you'll be connected to all those teams, SPFX, Power Platform, list formatting samples, all the samples that are available. Now you're like thinking, man, that's a lot of URLs for me to memorize. No worries, only one, ak.ms/community/home will take you to all these resources in your one-stop shop. So definitely get involved there and take advantage of all those resources. Now you may be thinking, I really like these community calls. We like them too. So we've got plenty to offer you. The Microsoft 365, there I go again, Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community calls include calls such as the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Microsoft speakers only call. So what this is going to provide you is all those product managers and program managers that are working hard on the products that we all love very, very much. They're going to be the only presenters on these calls. So you're going to get it directly from the mothership, and you're going to be able to learn directly from those that are making the products within Microsoft. We, of course, have our other community calls, Power Platform Monthly, which is in a couple of weeks. That's the third Wednesday of every month. We've got the Identity Platform, Office Add-ins. And then, of course, the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community bi-weekly call, which you're on now, and the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework, which is the opposite Thursday of this week. So you can access all of these by going to ak.ms/community/calls. And, of course, there is also the meetup that you can take advantage of. So definitely check that out. ak.ms/community/meetup will also connect you and keep you informed. Now, you may be thinking, I would love to actually present on these calls, and we would love you to present on these calls, and we made it easy for you. You just got to go to this URL, ak.ms/community/request/demo, and fill out the form, tell us what you'd like to cover, and we will get you scheduled. We've got a number of openings coming up in the next couple of months that are available to you, so if you want to show a technical pattern or a sample or a demo, absolutely, maybe you've blogged about it and want to show it off. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to feel like you're inventing the flux capacitor or making time travel possible. Remember, what you have learned as valuable, others will find valuable too. So definitely take advantage of this. And if you've not presented and you're a little nervous about it, let us know. We can buddy up with you. We've got a buddy system in place, and we'd love to work directly with you. Now, looking ahead at the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Microsoft speakers call next week, we've got Aisha Bass coming in to talk about dynamically creating an Azure communication service identity and token. And then our very favorite Gary Trinder is going to talk about the continued path of Teams Toolkit. Then next week will be build a Microsoft Teams tab using a Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. Last week earlier this week was a bot, so we look forward to that continuation. And then the one and only Wójcik will be there to talk about Microsoft Graph Hackathon, recapping that first week. So we look forward to that exciting opportunity for everyone to get involved there. And you may be thinking, I want to get involved in the community, but I'm not quite sure where to start. Hugo Bernier, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's funny you should ask, because we have initiatives called Sharing is Caring, where we can actually help you get started in the Patterns and Practices community. We have first-time contributor, you have Power Platform samples contributor, writing for the web, and many more. We've got some new sessions scheduled for March, and we strongly encourage to join us if you want to learn how to contribute. And I promise you, it's not going to be recorded. It's going to be fun, and everyone can be in a safe space and ask questions. Hey, if I can ask questions and nobody makes fun of me, you know it's a safe place. And then once you've joined these sessions, you can actually join our community recognition program. And so that's for anyone who has contributed to the community in many ways. So whether you've written some samples, you've published an independent connector, you've written documentation or many other things, and including presenting on these calls. All you need to do is you need to sign up at aka.ms/community/recognition. And then what we'll do is we'll associate your GitHub account to your Credly account. And Credly is something that is used for all the official badges. So for example, if you get certified at Microsoft, you get a badge. And so we're using the same program. We're using Credly to create these badges. They're official, so you can put them on your resume, you can put them on your LinkedIn, you can show it to your friends and impress people. You can even get a tattoo if you want. So again, don't hesitate to sign up. This is free for you. And with that, I'd like to pass it back to my friend David.
Awesome. Thank you, Hugo. Yeah, getting that tattoo was painful, but getting the new year added on every year, oh boy, I tell you. But it's worth it. It's worth it. So, all right, let's talk about Hack Together. It is now March, so that means that Hack Together has started. So definitely check out how you can get involved here. Go to aka.ms/hack-together to see the Microsoft Graph and .NET opportunities that are available to you in the next couple of weeks. And as we mentioned, Wójcik will be here to recap the first week on that call on Tuesday. So definitely get invited to that and logged in there to learn more about the Hack Together progress. Let's move over to some project-specific updates, and we'll start with Bert.
Thank you, David. What happened in the .NET world? A couple of things. For the PnP framework library, we had a change from Arno around the undo checkout file. So he enabled that so it can be used in PowerShell. And then another one from Giacomo around the default column value setting. And this is one that caused some concerns, some issues. Because in the backend, what happened is that Microsoft did start rolling out a change that blocked adding event receivers on out-of-the-box event receivers on lists, and default column values on a folder depend on that event receiver, which caused several provisioning templates to start to fail suddenly. The fix from Giacomo makes the problem less prevalent. We only apply the event receiver now when it's really needed, but still it can fail. Now we are actually rolling back that change, so the situation should restore itself and you should get back to a working model, and we will kind of review why this went through and how we can offer a solution that works for everyone. All right, on the CoreSDK side, Martin did work on enabling app permission request approval. So if you deploy an application to your catalog and it requires like a graph permission, you have to approve it. You go to the tenant admin and you approve it. Now you can do this pragmatically using CoreSDK as part of our application support. And also has support for enabling or disabling the app principal if you would need that. And finally, there is like a new rename method on the file object just to make renaming easier, and a couple of other small fixes. Yeah, I think that's it for me then. Let's move to PowerShell with Gautam. Thank you all.
Thanks, Bert. What's new in the PnP PowerShell world? Well, the 2.x nightly builds are out, so do check them out. We have dropped support for PowerShell 5, so you should ideally update to the latest PowerShell 7.3, but it will also work in 7.2 as well. What is improved in the newer nightlies is this add PnP Teams tab command. So we have added better support for adding a planner tab as well as SharePoint pages tabs. So that has been improved. We we all, as I think Bert mentioned in the previous slide, that somebody added a code for undoing the checked out file. So we also added a related commandlet to that. So if you want to discard checkout to a particular file, you can do that as well. In the PnP add PnP file, in the add PnP file commandlet, we have not changed the default check-in to minor to the minor check-in. It was earlier used to do a major check-in, so we have changed that. And if you want to still continue using the major check-in, we have added this additional commandlet, which is called as the check-in type parameter. So you can do that, and that will add the major check-in. And one other interesting parameter we added to the set PnP list is this default sensitivity label for the library. So if you are using the graph library, it used to require a premium graph library, but if you use this command, it uses the SharePoint APIs, and this does make things a bit more easier if you want to set that default sensitivity label for a library. So do check them out, and do reach out to us on the discussion forum as well as on the issue list on GitHub. Thanks. Over to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Gautam. That is very, very cool. And again, 140 million command lists executed per day. Fantastic. Excellent. All right, let's turn over to you. I'm on a roll today. Teams with Stephan.
Thank you, David. And we have a new release. Rick released 4.1.0 4 hours ago with support for generating Teams manifest versions 1.14 and 1.15. And we fixed some bugs which we encountered. And we are working on releasing Teams build core and deploy for stable versions as well later today or by tomorrow, hopefully. So definitely go check that out and give it a try. And apart from that, we're still discussing on how to simplify the generator itself to make it more easier to contribute for anyone who would like to contribute. So if you have an idea in mind, or if you have anything you'd like to see in Teams, either let us know via our GitHub repo, or if you want to do it by yourself, just file a PR, file an issue, create an issue, let us know. And we definitely need your help to get the Teams even better. Over to you, David. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Stephan. Excellent. All right, and definitely get involved, folks, because they're a great group of guys and gals that would love to help you get more involved. So don't be afraid to reach out there. All right, Microsoft Teams Toolkit. Let's turn it over to Vesa.
Yeah, on here, there's a new version available, released on last day of February, so just on Tuesday this week, which is 4.2.4, and that actually includes primarily a SharePoint Framework 1.16.1 support within the Microsoft Teams Toolkit for Teams applications. And there are other updates like Node 18 support, React 17 support, and Team.js to the latest version, well, almost the latest version. There's a lot of opportunities for community to get involved, and there's even a paid options related on interviews. So you probably want to check out the URL. We'll put it in the chat for that one. But let's then move to Microsoft Graph and Seb. Sorry, David, I can't help myself.
That's okay. No problem. I appreciate the help.
Thanks, Visa. Thanks, David. So we're excited. We just shipped our v2.9.1 yesterday night. Update your packages. It's all available right now on NPM. We're bringing some interesting capabilities and fixes to our MGT people picker. We're also bringing a subtle change to our MGT loader to invite, if you're using MGT from a CDN, we invite you to pin your version from the CDN. We are so close to shipping our v3. We want you to not be hit by our breaking change when they're going to hit in v3. So we're adding some console logging in the browser to let developers know that, by the way, we're making these big changes. Please make sure that you pin your version there. What's next? In the next few days, we worked really hard to have it for this week. It might slip, maybe tomorrow, it might be early next week. We're going to have our first official preview of Microsoft Graph Toolkit v3, which is all built on Fluent and with a lot of new capabilities. So we're very, very excited about this one. It's going to be a big release. Watch for the big blog post happening next week. We're going to bring more components, more generic templates, more theming opportunities also with that version. So I think it's going to be great for anybody that is using the toolkit and wants to leverage, for example, being part of a Teams app, being part of an Office.com app, where we will be able to leverage some of the theming capabilities right there. We need your help. We want you to help either fix some of our bugs. We need your ideas. We need to talk about your scenarios. We want to hear your feedback. So feel free to go on into our repo, aka.ms/ngt, and that's where we can start the discussion. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Seb. Excellent. Excellent work. Excited for the new stuff there. All right. Independent publisher connectors with Joss.
It is I, your favorite Gen Z PM. We're going to switch the order today to give everybody a chance to scan that QR code. If you love connectors as much as I do, and you want to have a connector-specific session hosted by myself, please scan that QR code to fill out a quick form, and I will send you an invite. Our next Connectors Labs call will be next Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time. We always have updates and educational session from another internal PM like myself, featuring topics like ALM, like the Dataverse connector, and as well as a demo from an independent publisher that could be you. Now, if we switch gears back over to updates, we are now at 963 total connectors, which is 15 more since 2 weeks ago. That's more than one a day. We are only a third through our 6-month goal between January and June, but we are 2/3 to our goal in terms of quantity of connectors, much due to the contributions of community members like yourself. We are now at 246 independent publisher connectors, which has surpassed the quantity of internal-made first-party connectors. 78 amazing publishers with 7 new ones since 2 weeks ago. Of course, we have our normals. We have Troy with 1 JService affirmations and API templates, as well as Fortidos with Air Labs. Some of you might recognize Amjad's name. That is our very own certification PM with yet another connector, as well as welcome to Mint Management Technologies for their first connector with PaySpace. If you are interested in getting involved, my links will be in the chat. We need your help in order to help execute some of our top connector asks. We have 963, but not enough yet. As well as you can receive a Credly badge for your contributions as an independent publisher connector. So please reach out and get involved. Thanks, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. More independent publishers than first party. Oh, snap. But that's awesome. We love it. Excellent. All right. How about some script samples with Paul Bullock?
Thank you, David. So Script Samples is a place where you can share scripts with the community. We have some an awesome set of new scripts on the board there. So just to step back, Script Samples is a place where you can share scripts such as Microsoft Graph, PnP PowerShell, SPO Management Shell, and all your favorite tooling. The new scenarios we've got 2 for the Microsoft Graph SDK PowerShell. So we've got Add Users to Follow Sites by Andre Lange. And we've got multilingual SharePoint summarization using OpenAI and API and Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK by Anoop. We've got some new PnP PowerShell scripts, which is super cool. So we've got remove title area from SharePoint page by Ganesh. We've got use invoke PnP site template with parameters by Casper Larsen. Export access shared links from a SharePoint library from Andre again, and we've got associate multiple site collections to a hub site by Siddharth, which is super cool. I've also introduced a new PowerShell script in the root of the repository. So at the moment, when you create a new sample, you need to copy the boiler code that I've got and then fill it out. So what I have done now is created a PowerShell script where you can specify things like the name of the folder, the title of the script, the descriptions, and which tooling you want to submit a sample for. And that will generate out all of the boilerplate and fill out a lot of the detail for you, saving you have to do that data entry. A way to lower the barrier if you're struggling to create new samples. But by all means, it is literally fresh out from yesterday. So if there's any issues or if you want to contribute and need some help, by all means, reach out to me via Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to spend some time helping you get moving forward. And again, thank you very much for everyone who's contributed. You're absolutely awesome. And remember to opt in for the recognition badge. You will get a badge for script samples. Thank you. Over to you, David.
Awesome. Well done. Thanks, Paul. A lot of great work there. Thank you, everybody. Microsoft Teams samples with Bob German.
Hi, everybody. So I actually have a couple things today. One is a new sample. This was actually Rabia Williams and my Hack Week project. We built a Teams meeting app that uses the LiveShare SDK and Fluid Framework to just organize who's going to talk next in a team meeting. It's simple enough that you can kind of get your hands around how to use Fluid Framework to synchronize the data behind your application, and how to use Teams Toolkit to build an app like this that runs inside of your meetings. So I think we're scheduled in a few weeks, like in April, to do a deep dive on this, but you don't have to wait because we've also got a blog article and a video that are available right now. So would love to see this. As kind of low friction. If you can upload an app, you can use this thing. You don't need any, there's no administrative permissions required. I also want to take a second, and I only had one slide, so I kind of stuck this up in the corner, for ISVs building monetized Teams apps. So the Microsoft Teams ecosystem group, in conjunction with the Global Partner Solutions Group, is looking to accelerate getting apps into the Teams App Store and monetizing them. Now, I know nobody likes to make money, right? Making money, building something, and then just having it run in the background and generate revenue for you or your company. That's who wants to do that? But just on the off chance, these people actually want to help you accelerate that process of getting your app into the Teams Store, integrated with the commercial marketplace, so that people can actually pay for the app. You get to keep 97% of the money because we only charge 3%, unlike certain other app stores. And so it's a great opportunity if you're in an ISV. Please go ahead to this URL, teamsapps, aka.ms/teamsapps/support, and fill in a little form there, and they'll help. Basically, they want people who are going to sell their apps in the store, but they'll help with all the different aspects. And if you're not an ISV, I got to just say, on a personal note, I've seen more and more companies that build something for their own use or for their clients' use starting to break into actually becoming software sellers as well. It's a great kind of extra income stream and an extra way to get your name out there in the world. So I just wanted to mention that as well. And thanks very much. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. Great work there, everybody. And last but not least, let's kick it back to Hugo quickly for Power Platform samples.
Thank you. So Power Platform samples are repositories in GitHub that allows you to share your Power Platform samples. I know, crazy name. We have two new samples. One is a quality assurance assessment by Nadi Turtledove. It's inspired by the Center of Excellence Quality Assurance, but it's always good to see how people reverse engineering these solutions and build new versions. And Company Pulse by Angelo is another one of these reverse engineered. This one was rebuilt using the Creator Kit, and it's awesome. No updates or no samples from Bo Cameron yet, but I'll keep you up to date if this situation changes. But feel free to join us on Sharing and Scaring on March 15th, and we always welcome your samples. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks. You have sold me, Hugo. Now let's get our favorite time before we get to our all-stars picture time. Share that camera, turn on that movie thing, and Vesa will take on over, and we will quickly snap that. We're a little behind schedule, but we will catch up.
Yep.
Here we go.
It's good. Luckily, we have only 2 demos today, so 50 seats in the room. Who has time to get there? Few more seats in the room. Few more seats. One more seat. One first one, second.
Sold.
Exactly. Okay, I will put the recording on. We will see the numbers in the screen, and let's do some hand waving. We'll do a GIF animation out of that. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Todd is very
really cool to have you on a call.
Picturesque today.
Seb is doing really good on the middle, showing how it can be done. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Awesome to see you in here, and hopefully we'll see you in the multiple in-person conferences later this spring. But let's get back to the real stars of the day. Right, David?
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. All right. Anoop is here to tell us about using app-only model with Microsoft Graph APIs for Planner. Anoop, take it away.
All right. Thanks, David. Let me share my screen. And yes. Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. So in this session, we'll be looking at using app-only model
with Microsoft Graph APIs for Planner. With that, I hope that this presentation goes according to the plan. Right, so just quickly about myself. My name is Anoop. I'm a Microsoft MVP and developer at a company called Content+Cloud. Here are the various links that I use for my social media platforms. You can follow me on those if needed. Okay, so let's start with the first slide, which is about Microsoft Graph, and I'm sure everyone knows about Microsoft Graph. So I've just taken these two sentences from the docs.microsoft.com. So Microsoft Graph is the gateway to data and intelligence in Microsoft 365, and it provides a programmability model that we can use to access tremendous amount of data in Microsoft 365, Windows, and enterprise mobility and security. In today's demo, we'll be focusing on getting Microsoft 365 data using Microsoft Graph. So this slide is about interacting with Microsoft Graph. On the left side, we've got an external app. So this is the app that we will be building. And in order to access Microsoft 365 data, which is on the right side, that Microsoft 365 data can be anything, be it in SharePoint or Planner or anything else, Outlook, Calendar, whatnot. So for our external app to access Microsoft 365 data, we need Microsoft Graph. And the process is quite straightforward. Our external app asks Microsoft Graph to get us the data from Microsoft 365. Microsoft Graph verifies that everything with the external app is correct, as in it has got the required permissions and the client IDs, secrets, and certificates. Everything is proper. If all of that is OK, Microsoft Graph will get the data from Microsoft 365 and then pass that back to our external app. So there are several types of apps we can develop. One of such apps is GitHub. So as you can see on the left side, we've got GitHub. And if GitHub has to access Microsoft 365 data, then we can use Microsoft Graph and then get the data. And that's what we'll be looking at today. In particular, we'll be looking at interacting with the planner from GitHub. So what we'll do is we'll use Microsoft Graph to interact with Planner and then pass that data back to GitHub. So in order to do that, what we'll do is we'll look at the repository in GitHub, and that repository on GitHub will have a GitHub workflow, and this workflow runs on a pull request. So when there is a pull request, say on the main branch, this particular GitHub workflow will run, which we'll have a look at in a minute. And then that workflow calls something called as a GitHub action. And that GitHub action has some code which passes the data to Microsoft Graph. And then Microsoft Graph, once it gets the data from this GitHub action, it verifies the authentication. Say, the client ID and secret will be passed, and the permissions. So with that, Microsoft Graph will verify that the app has got proper permissions. And if that is the case, then Microsoft Graph issues an instruction to create a planner task. And once that is done, we can see the planner task in the planner, and users can interact with that task. So this is just one example scenario of how we can use Microsoft Graph in order to interact with planner tasks. And in this case, the application we are using is GitHub, but that can be any other application as well. Right. With that in mind, let's take a look at the demo. So let me set up the scene here. What I have here is a user called Megan Bowen, obviously. And I have opened a GitHub repository, which is aptly named as workflow test. So myself and Megan are the owners of this repository. Now, what I'll do is I have opened this repository as Megan. I'll switch to the develop branch and then make a small change and create a pull request. So let's do that. What I'll do is I'll just edit the README and then this is demo. add some nice text here and then commit that change. And then if I go back to the repository, it says that the dev branch has been changed, so I can create a pull request. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create a pull request and then give it a nice title and a nice description and create that pull request. Right. Now what this will do is this will trigger a workflow. So for that, what I'll do is I'll just switch to my GitHub account and then open the same repository. And then I'll just go on to actions, and we can see that the workflow has triggered and it is running. Now what this workflow will do is, like I showed you in the slide earlier, it calls a GitHub action, which then goes ahead and creates the task. So as you can see over here, if I just zoom in a bit, the workflow calls a GitHub action called MS Graph create task, and that task goes ahead and creates a task in the planner. Now, if we look at the planner plan itself, so here's the planner plan, and as you can see over here, there's a bucket called as pull requests, and in that bucket, a new task has been created, which says review the pull request. And then if I open that, it has got the title of the pull request, and it also has got the link to the pull request. So as the owner of this repository, I have a task in my planner, and then I can click on that link and then look at that pull request and go ahead and either merge the pull request or close or take any other action. In this case, I'll just go ahead and merge the pull request. And then once that is done, I go back to my planner plan and then say completed. Yeah. So that's the simple use case that we have here. Now, just before showing you the code, I wanted to show you that we've got an app registration in Azure, and in that app registration, if I zoom in a bit, that particular app has got tasks.readWrite.all permission, and because we'll be using this permission in order to create tasks in the planner. With that in mind, let me go back to the slides again. So just to recap, what we saw was a GitHub workflow which triggered on pull request, and that called a GitHub action, which then passed the data to Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph then went ahead and created a task in the planner. Now, our main focus here is the GitHub action, which is used to call Microsoft Graph. That's the one which we saw run earlier in the workflow. So that particular GitHub action is nothing but a Node.js project. So let's have a look at the code of that and and see how the task gets created. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen now is the code of that GitHub action. The link for this will be shared soon. I have a slide for that towards the end. So this particular GitHub action, if you see on the right side, it's a normal Node.js project. We've got our source folder and dist lib. So it's just like a normal Node.js project that you have. I have focused here on the package.json file, and we are using two particular packages here. One is Azure/msal node, and the other one is Microsoft/Microsoft Graph Client. These two packages are needed in order to interact with Microsoft Graph. Okay. So this particular GitHub action has three main files, the auth.ts, graph.ts, and main.ts. All the code that I'll be showing you will be in these three main files. Right. So firstly, when the GitHub action triggers, what we do is we pass certain details to this GitHub action. So I have highlighted all the details over here. What I'll just do is I'll quickly show you the workflow as to how we are passing this data so that it'll all make sense. So if I just go back to the workflow that we saw earlier, it that was this one. And we saw that the action was called over here, and then all the details were passed. So if I quickly show you the workflow itself, sorry, just this one. So we can see here that we call this particular action and then pass all the details like the client ID, client secret, the tenant ID, the plan, the bucket, and the different the title and the user ID to whom the task must be assigned. So from the workflow, we are calling this particular GitHub action. Now, if I go back to the slides again, so when the GitHub action is called, we get all the details from the workflow, and then what we do is we parse all those details within these different variables. Once that is done, we create a new object for graph. When we call that code, what happens is it just runs the constructor in the graph.ts file with the client ID secret and the tenant ID. That goes ahead and creates a new object of the auth class. And over here in the constructor of auth.ts, we can see that we are creating a confidential client application. Now, you might have seen this particular code in various samples that are provided by Microsoft on how to use Microsoft Graph. So I have just taken this code from one of those samples. All we are doing here is creating an object of confidential client application. Once that is done, we go back to the main.ts file. Here we create an object of the type planner task. In this, we have the plan ID, the bucket ID, the due date, to whom it must be assigned, and the priority. And then once we have that task object, we pass it to the graph.createTask method. What does this do? As per the name, it creates the task, but before that, it has to get the graph client. So we have this function called as getClient, and the getClient function, it first has to get the access token. In order to get the access token, what we do here is, we compose the client credential request first, in which we pass the scope, which is graph.com/.default, and then we set skip cache as true. This is optional. If we set it to true, then it will skip the token cache on every request. We can set it to false as well based on the requirement. And then what we do is we call this important method, which is acquire token by client credential. Now that is part of the MSAL library, and Microsoft have done all the hard work on writing that method. So all we have to do is just call that method, and then with that we get the access token. And then once we have the access token, what we do is we create the graph client. So for that, in order to do that, we have to firstly create the auth provider, and then as you can see over here, we then just call the client.init method and pass in the auth provider to that. Now, this is part of the Microsoft Graph Client library that we saw earlier in the package.json. Right. With that, we have the Graph Client. And once we have the Graph Client, all we have to do is just call the Graph API endpoint in order to create a planner task. In this case, it is /planner/tasks. And we post the task object that we saw earlier. And once that is done, Graph API goes ahead and creates the task in the planner. So that was the code. As you saw, it was very simple. We just called Microsoft Graph in order to create a task. All right. So in summary, Microsoft Graph Planner API now has app-only permissions. This was, I think, done a couple of months back. It already had delegated permissions, but there was a request for app-only permissions, and Microsoft have now provided us with that. And in order to use this, we have to create an Azure AD app registration, and that particular app registration needs to have tasks.read.all permission if we are only doing read activities. If you want to do read and write activities, then the permission is tasks.readwrite.all. And we saw a scenario using GitHub in which a GitHub action was used to create a task. And then that particular GitHub action was called by a workflow which runs on pull request. And but I'm sure there will be other scenarios in which this can be used in order to create tasks in a planner. Here are some links that were used as part of this demo, and I see them in the chat already. And with that, I pass it back to you, David. Thanks.
Awesome, Anoop. Yeah, this is really, really cool. Again, I love these better together scenarios that show how we can use the technologies that we all use together in a variety of ways. So thank you for highlighting that. Those links are in the chat. In the interest of time, we will move on to Adam, who's going to show us how improving your test strategy with Microsoft Developer Proxy can be done. So Adam, take it away.
Sure. So
Yep.
short introduction about me. My name is Adam. I'm a father and a pretty standard developer. I'm one of the CLI for Microsoft 365 maintainers. So if you need any guidance or help regarding CLI, just link me up. I'm a quite fresh MVP, still don't know what to do with it, but I guess it's really awesome. I'm a freelancer, but for quite a long time now, I've been working for Hitachi Energy. I'm located in Poland, and you can catch me on LinkedIn and Twitter. Okay, let's move on. So today I will be showing a kind of a use case for the Microsoft Developer Proxy. I hope it's a tool you already had a chance to try out. If not, I hope with this demo I will motivate you to do so. So basically, this is a console application that helps you test the untestable and improve the quality of your apps by simulating responses to any kind of API, not only Microsoft Graph APIs, like the name could suggest, could be configured to simulate errors or any kind of response for any kind of API. So with this tool, we can, of course, simulate errors. We can, for example, mock a specific response we would like to have for a specific request. This tool helps us demonstrate behaviors that are really hard to produce, especially on our test environment where everything is always working. And also, along the way, this tool provides you guidance that you can, of course, turn off, but it's cool to have them. And for example, it suggests you to use additional query parameters to select only the data you're supposed to use, or for example, to switch to using an SDK instead of just using an HTTP client, which what I will be doing today. Okay, and what's really awesome, it will run on any OS and it's fully extendable with plugins. It's not a part of my demo today, but maybe in near future, let's see. So if there is a use case that is not covered by this tool and it's a bit out of scope for this tool, it doesn't matter, it cannot help you. You can still extend it with a plugin for your specific needs. And what's really, really important is that this tool is still in the community preview stage. So it's not released yet, but it means that it really needs your feedback and testing. And any kind of feedback, I guess, is important. Of course, reporting bugs, of course, ideas, but also positive feedback. Like, I tried it out, it's awesome. I will use it in the future. Thanks. It will be really good for the team to have. So please provide feedback for the tool, especially now before it's released. So it's really okay to introduce breaking changes from pre-release to pre-release, as opposed to maybe when it's released, it wouldn't be so okay to introduce a breaking change like after 2 weeks, even if your idea is really awesome. So I will be covering a scenario of improving the test's quality of my desktop application. And you may ask, well, okay, desktop application, boring, right? Why not a web application? That's because there's already a use case and a scenario how you can use and integrate this tool with a web application. And there's a demo provided by Seth some time ago on one of the PnP community rules. So I'll just leave a link here so you can just you look it up. And also probably, since we are all in the Microsoft 365 world, you are using the Shepherd framework extensibility, and will this tool help us with this as well? Yes, and Valo also presented a demo not so long ago regarding this. Okay, so what about I'm writing scripts, like I do a lot. So can this tool help me like improve testing of my scripts? Yes, actually it is. As long as your script in CLI or PnP PowerShell or whatever is actually doing some request call the proxy can intercept. So, and regarding the desktop apps, what kind of desktop application do I mean? I mean any kind of application. So, any kind if you can think of. So the main idea I'm trying to present here is that actually the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy can help you improve the quality or test of your test your application of any kind of local, any kind of application you are running locally that is doing any kind of request to any kind of API, not only Microsoft Graph or Microsoft specific APIs. Then we can configure just Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy to intercept this kind of call and provide a different response so you can see how your app can behave, which is quite awesome. And for the sake of simplicity, I developed a really simple one-view WPF application with just 3 buttons to show how we can improve the test. And regarding tests, what do I actually mean? So what kind of tests I want to improve with this tool? When I'm meaning unit tests or integration tests? Well, actually no, because here in unit tests and integration tests, we are testing part of codes with code, so we can mock whatever we want, not only response to any kind of request, but we can mock any kind of response for any method. But for sure, Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy can help you with improving the quality of your manual or UI automated tests, which is a lot better. And how? Well, let's think of a scenario how UI automated tests usually work. So we have like a local application, like some kind of client we want to test. Okay, pretty cool. We start developing code that will run this application, click it through, and along the way, it turns out this application is using many kind of APIs. It's good that those, for example, are APIs that we actually manage. So those are actually in our responsibility. So we can also set them up along the way as a part of this test or as a part of pipeline that will be running this test. And any kind of, for example, cloud or in some kind of encapsulated behavior. So we'll have also the resources that will be created dedicatedly for this client application for this UI automated test. So this could be quite easy, but still, also this imposes a big complexity and some complexity in our UI automated test scenario we need to develop. What about APIs that are we can consider external resources that we don't manage? What about those? For example, we call the graph, the Microsoft Graph. So we cannot like manage this because it's not our responsibility. So what if this fails, and it may happen from time to time? Well, then we have to just consider that from time to time in our pipeline, we may see some fails that will just be a success when we run again. And for sure, this is some wasted time that a developer or a tester needs to check on the pipeline. Okay, why it failed? Is it actually our responsibility, or was it a random error? That may happen from time to time. And what about mocking errors? Do we actually test error scenarios in UI automated tests? Well, not so much, because it's really hard to develop this kind of test. It also imposes additional complexity. Let's think of for example, we need to have some data in a database that is corrupt specifically for this run. And then our web API will be using this row and a specific kind of request to make it fail, so we can test a failed run. And this would be all needed to be developed as part of a setup script or a part of a pipeline that will be running before this UI automated test will be taken care of. So usually, as this imposes additional complexity, usually UI automated test the success path, so when everything goes fine. And with Microsoft Developer Proxy, we can improve each of these areas. We actually won't need any additional resources except our client app and the Developer Proxy console running. We can mock any kind of API, not only the one we manage. So we should get rid of the errors in our pipelines, and it will be just really easy to mock errors. And I will show all of those in a really simple use case in a demo, which is now. Okay, so I have a really simple application in WPF with a couple of buttons. I will run it now. And actually, my application just sign in the user from cache stored in local file, so I don't need to, even if I have multi-factor authentication, etc., I don't need to do it now. And I have 2 buttons. The first one is calling the Microsoft Graph to get my information about my personal information. And since it's an API that exists, it runs and it's successful. And the other one is actually, so this one is actually running a custom API that I didn't develop. I forgot about it, so it will always fail. But still, I can send the request and wait for a response that is actually failing. Okay, that's quite cool. So I have a client application I would like to test with a UI automated test. So now, since I didn't develop this web API for the second call, I would need to create this additional resource, store it somewhere, keep it, whatever. With Microsoft Developer Proxy, we don't have to do it at all. Let me just start this tool. For starters, it starts in a chaos mode. So it kind of listens on the URL defined in the app settings JSON I will show you in a bit, and will randomly produce a result. It can be either success or an error from one of the predefined errors we also can define in the app settings JSON for every call we are actually listening to. So now if I would click on the call Microsoft Graph API, we can see, okay, it turned out it's a success. Let me try again. Okay, again, I'm really lucky today, but okay, the third time, actually I got an error. Gateway timeout. And as you can see, it's in a chaos kind of mode. So it means that it was randomly picked an error. I presented this error in the text box. And also Microsoft Graphs, as I told you, gives you additional tips how you can improve your code. But what about my second call to my custom API? Okay, so I click this one. This one still fails because the API is not still there. And Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy, that doesn't work yet. It doesn't show me my API. Yeah, because it doesn't know, it needs to listen for, okay, maybe look for the request coming to this directory URL. And we can configure it really easily. So let me just turn this one off. And this is the app settings JSON. This was part of the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy you can configure. The first thing, the big part are the plugins that we can just not present today, but you can get the feeling how it is developed, that everything in Microsoft Developer Proxy is a kind of a plugin and it's extendable, and you can replace it with your own or attach a new one. But the important part I want to show us today is actually the URLs to watch. I trimmed this only to look for currently for the Microsoft Graph Me endpoint. That's because a lot of things under the hood, like also Teams, are using Microsoft Graph. So I wanted to join this call without any additional problems. That's why I trimmed this only to look at the specific URL. But if you would just download the latest pre-release 0.5 of the Microsoft Developer Proxy, you would have a bigger app settings JSON with it's just pre-configured to look for any kind of call to Microsoft Graph and SharePoint APIs, which is quite cool because all of this work is done for you. And what the only thing I need to add here is just tell Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy to listen to my additional request, which is this one, which is the custom API endpoint get test. That's all. Let's save it. Let's rerun. And now if I will click on my custom button to call my custom API, okay, it worked. We have a success, and it's still failed because the API is not there, but let's click it again. Okay, it works. So you see, I got an chaos and an error. The Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy is actually aware of my request to my custom API now, and is randomly producing errors to my API that doesn't exist. So this is quite cool. It means we can test a client application without any additional resource, any additional web APIs we need to store on the cloud or local or run locally specifically for this test, or maybe even additional databases that are retrieving data. The API is retrieving data from those databases to give us the response. Okay, but this is randomly producing error. How we can create a UI automated test that tests a random response? This is not quite efficient. Well, it's quite easy. In Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy, we have additional bunch of parameters. One of those is providing a mock file, which I will be presenting today. I have I've written a really short mock JSON, which is producing the internal server error for both of those requests, just for the sake of the simplicity. But if you dive deep in the documentation, which I really recommend you because the wiki is quite big and it's really awesome, you can see that the responses you can create specifically for each request, it can be either a success with a bunch of data or a specific kind of error you would like to respond for any kind of request. Also your APIs again. So, okay, let me run the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy with this mock file. It already tells me that, okay, I have defined a mock for 2 URLs. And now if I will run either the Microsoft Graph call or my custom API call, I will always get the same response in the scenario I actually written in the mock.json file, which is always the internal server error. So, okay, this is cool. I have a client up. The only thing I need, Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy, a console application working in the background, and let's say currently a really small one, but for a UI automated test in a big scenario could be quite big, but a single JSON file that will be producing the exact responses I want to test for my app. That means that I can really easily test without any additional resources except this JSON file, success scenarios and error scenarios, which is great. Okay, so this is what I will actually do. I developed a really simple UI automated test. It's not the best practice how a test should look like. Probably most of the steps here could be set up as a part of the pipeline, or could be in a predefined setup step, but just for the sake of simplicity, I put everything in a single unit test, UI automated test. And as you can see, you don't need even have to be an owner of the app you want to you don't need the source code of the app you are going to test. I just need the executable of the application I want to start. And then I want to start Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy with a specific mock JSON I created specifically for this scenario one that I'm going to test. And this scenario is just clicking all the three buttons and is looking if the response is actually an error. Okay, let's run it. Takes about like half an hour, so we're gonna wait. I mean, like 30 seconds, I hope, unless it crashes. So I'm not touching the mouse now. You have to just believe me, but you will see from the mouse movement that it's kind of like jumping from button to button. So I think it's impossible for me to do something like this with a touchpad. Basically, in the background, we can see the developer proxy started, and we already clicked on the first Microsoft Graph button, then now on my second custom API button, and now the UI automated test will close my app. And that's the end. It didn't close the proxy. Why? Because I didn't written it in the test, only to show you what was actually done beneath. But you can see that the test passed according to what I wanted to assert. So as you can see, the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy intercepted the calls in the UI automated test according to my scenario and gave the responses I wanted it to do. And the UI automated test just passed without any additional apps, resources, work, whatever, just 2 apps and JSON. Quite cool. Let me go back to the slides. Yeah, and I have a recap slide. Yeah, this time I prepared. So what I actually proven with this really simple test case, I hope that it also motivated you to give it a try. I mean, give it developer proxy a try, is that with this tool, you can improve your the UI automated test quality, and you can get rid of those failed running tests in the pipelines, because you can now even mock responses for the APIs you don't handle that can randomly fail. Now you can just always mock it the way you want it to run, fail or success, whatever. So it's a really, it's like saving you a lot of time, especially for the test team that would have to investigate each failing case. And as I said a bunch of times now, it reduces the complexity for us developers when developing such a UI automated test. We don't need to think about setting up an additional database, additional web API for only to test our small client application. And we don't need to do it in a pipeline or locally during the test starts, which is also saving us time and make me for sure happy as a developer. And it's for sure saving a bit of money, especially if those were resources in the cloud we now don't need to keep. So I guess the client will be also a bit happy. So it makes everybody happy. Just try it. And I guess that's everything I wanted to say. I hope I really motivated you to give Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy a try and provide as much feedback as possible, because it's still in the community preview. So feedback is really important, especially if you have some specific use case like this one. You could integrate with the proxy, or some other awesome ideas that could be introduced now just from pre-release to pre-release, and it's okay to introduce any breaking changes. And also, one thing was already mentioned on this demo call is that currently there is a huge hackathon event. I mean huge, but I mean it's really important. Microsoft Graph .NET hackathon currently running. So if you haven't registered and you didn't participate yet, please do so, because it's an awesome opportunity to learn how to use Microsoft Graph in the .NET world. Even if you are an expert, you can always learn something new and gain more experience in this area for sure. And I guess that's pretty much I have to say. I hope I wasn't rushing it and I didn't take too much time. So I'll pass my voice to David.
Awesome, Adam. Very, very cool. Really appreciate that. Excellent job. We'll have an opportunity to continue that conversation in a minute, and we'll just close up here. But great job. Thank you to both you and Anoop, Adam and Anoop, for the double A demos of the day. We appreciate all that you're doing in the community. So thank you both. Now you may be wondering, hey, I want to keep talking. Well, we have started community calls conversations, so you can continue the conversations here with Adam and Anoop. We have dedicated space for you to do that. Don't hesitate to get involved. Here are some QR codes and some URLs. They are also in the chat for you. This is an opportunity for you to use the Power Platform, Power Users forums to be able to continue those conversations. So we have dedicated spaces, again, using these QR codes or links. If you don't have an account, it is absolutely free to create one. We just want to make sure that the conversations and collaboration continues. We know we don't want to use the chat after this call because so many people are on it. We want to respect their area of Teams. So use this space to take advantage of continuing that conversation. Don't hesitate to get involved. Anoop and Adam are both standing by. All right. The recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community YouTube channel. You can access that at aka.ms/community/videos. Better yet, subscribe today, and you will be alerted exactly when those videos are dropped. Don't try to download it in Teams. It will just end up in sadness. Only Microsoft folks can do that. But definitely go to that link, aka.ms/community/videos, and subscribe. Also, follow on Twitter at M365PNP, or there's a LinkedIn group that you can join as well, aka.ms/community/li. The next M365 and Power Platform biweekly call 2 weeks from today, March 16th at 7 a.m. Next Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework next week, same bat time, same bat channel, March 9th at 7 a.m. You can access all of these calls at aka.ms/community/calls. Thank you, everyone, for attending the wonderful collaboration conversations. You are all awesome, and we are so thankful for all you're doing in the community. Have a great rest of the week and a wonderful weekend.